Hi, guys. This is Wandering into the Woods, a podcast brought to you by Adventures with BG. We are your hosts, Linda and Jarrett.
Hey everyone.
Now, due to COVID-19, we are seeing more people outside, spending times in their gardens or getting some exercise. We've also been pleased to see more people walking their dogs. And while we're excited to see this, we are here to give you and anyone out there who's new to walking their dogs some advice on how to ensure you and your dogs have a good time outside with minimum conflict. If you have a dog that's not used to being walked, is adopted, and or is untrained, you might find this advice particularly helpful. Now, just to give you some background as to where Jared and I are coming from, we are more or less experienced dog owners. We've had two terrier dog mixes, which we adopted as adults. We first adopted Angela in 2011, and she was 2 years old at the time. And a year later, we adopted BG, who was 4 years old at the time.
Wasn't it more than a year?
It could have been more than a year now that I'm thinking about it, because they're about the same age. So it might have been 2 years later.
Yeah.
And so we adopted them as I said, as adults, and so they came with their own sets of issues. They are both a little defensive and protective of us, and when we're outside, Angela, well, both outside and inside, Angela can be dog aggressive and resource possessive as well. So we have to be very careful, especially with Angela, because she can get very aggressive with other dogs really fast. BG, it's more of a touch and go situation. Sometimes she seems to be okay with other dogs and sometimes not. Now, in my experience, they've been very good with humans. They love humans. I've been in the unfortunate situation where children have come up to them inadvertently, and where I wasn't aware of it, I turned around and there was a child with Angela. Yeah, and Angela just total sweetheart with them, and she loves hanging out with them. So, point of it being, our dogs are total people sweethearts, but Angela does have some aggression issues that we are very cognizant about and try to be very aware about. That being said, because of that, we are always very good about it, having them on a leash. And we are trying to always be on the lookout for any possible perceived threats that might trigger Angela and or might trigger BG. And recently, Jared had an incident involving other dogs, and we were fortunate that they were on the leash. Jared, do you want to tell us more about that?
Sure. We were out on our morning walk, and in the distance we saw a smaller person, which turned out to be a old lady.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were walking, as we got closer to her as we were walking, she was kind of acting weird and like trying to pull her dogs to the side. So we stopped, hoping she would turn off a couple of side roads, but that didn't happen. So she kept coming slowly and kind of acting weird. At first, I thought it was more like a preteen with long hair, based on like the size, but that's not what it was when we got close.
Mm-hmm.
So she just kind of stopped at some point and like went behind a tree.
And her dogs were leashed, right?
Yeah, they were both leashed.
Okay.
So we were like, so I was like, well, she just stopped there and we have nowhere to go, so let's just try and get past her quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So we started a little bit closer, and about that point, her dog started pulling towards her, and she was just kind of staying on her feet, but still getting drugged, just screaming, no, 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 repeatedly. I was like, well, maybe she'll, get enough ground and me and the girls can back up and get away. But at some point, she just let go of the leashes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why.
Wow.
So both of her dogs, who were both chunks, came running over. One went for Angela, and that was kind of the first one I blocked because of the huge size difference. And I guess it kind of spun it out further. Then I kind of lost sight of them and went towards BG because that dog was being way more aggressive to her and was like nipping at her.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I put my arm down to get in between them, which I did. And one of the dogs kind of grazingly bit me in my elbow area,
Mm-hmm.
inside of my arm on the elbow. And about that point, Angela's attacker was nowhere to be seen, and she had come back and was either going to attack BG or was in the process of helping BG. And then at that point, I was able to kind of push the dog away after a second swipe.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, the lady was able to get control of her dogs again, kind of. So we started walking away, and she somehow lost them again. But
Was she shouting anything at
she
you?
was
Was
still
she?
like no and saying sorry and stuff. But she dropped the leash again. Angela's dog attacker was like, whatever, I'm done with this, and didn't
Mm-hmm.
really do anything. The one that went for BG like came running over again, but I just grabbed it by its collar and kind of held it in place, and which seemed to work. And the lady came over and grabbed both of her dogs, and we hauled butt out of there because I didn't want those dogs getting loose and deciding they were really going to kick it up a notch and be aggressive again.
Oh wow, it sounds like a challenging experience, both for you and for the dogs. And when you guys came back, BG and Angela seemed to be stressed out. They were licking a lot, and they were apprehensive. And fortunately, it seems like the dogs didn't get any bites at our
No,
dogs, although you did get bitten for sure. I know you played it as a graze, but it did leave a significant bruise and mark in your arm. So it, I'm glad you guys turned out to be safe, and that dog seems to have been vaccinated because you haven't shown any symptoms of rabies. But
yep,
um, this incident made me realize, and other incidents I've run across as I've literally been running outside, have made me realize that we need to help out some of the owners out there who are new to walking their dogs, just as we were at some point. So that being said, and that story having been shared, we thought we'd share with our listeners a few tips for walking their dogs. Before you take your dog on a short walk, think about the following. Ask yourself, are you strong enough to hold on to your dog as they try their hardest to pull away from you?
that old lady was not.
Yeah, and I bring this up because you have to keep in mind your own size and relative to your dogs and their strength and their size. And imagine them pulling at their hardest as they are seeking the thing that they most want, because you will likely run across that scenario when you are walking outside. And if you are not a professional dog trainer, or your dogs are not professionally trained, or you're dealing with some rescues like we are, you will run into situations where they do want to run after things. Um, and that brings me to my next question that you need to consider. Um, what are your dog's triggers? Are they likely to run off because of squirrels, because of strangers, or because of other dogs? What is it that makes them want to pull away from you and pull at their leash? Will you be encountering such triggers while you're out there? Most likely, yes. And do you have a plan for preventing such triggers or how to deal with them when you do see them? Here, you ran, as Jared said, he ran into this situation where he couldn't walk around this lady with the other dogs. So he was holding on to our dogs and trying to walk past them as soon as he could. And that was his strategy to try to prevent the incident that ended up occurring anyway. Um, and he was left there in an unfortunate situation where he didn't have another exit. But that's another thing for you to consider. Think about, are there alternate routes to prevent the triggers that will set your dogs off? And can you take them? And if you can, go ahead and take them. Or think about how you would take them, because right now that you're planning before your walk. Also, check your leash. Is it strong enough to hold your dog as they pull their hardest? And is it easy to maneuver? We've seen a lot of dog owners with retractable leashes. And while they seem convenient, I find them burdensome when you're trying to walk your dog outside, out on the trails, and you're trying to keep control of your dog. I find that the most helpful way to walk your dog is by having a simple leash, a simple old-fashioned leash that is strong enough to hold on to your specific dog. We have a different thickness of leashes for our bigger dog and for our smaller dog. And what I do is I always make sure that I am grabbing the leash with my hand, and that I also wrap it around my wrist at least once. And I do that because I am not built the way Jared is. And when I'm walking two dogs, I know that they are stronger than me and might get, away from me. And so having a grip and a wrap around my wrist helps protect me in those incidents where they have tried to run off for squirrels or for other dogs. And it's avoided, fortunately, a lot of potentially bad situations. So, and also make sure you have your doggy bags with you. Make sure you're a good neighbor. Um, so, so now that you've checked for triggers, and that you're strong enough to hold on to your dog, um, you have to, and you have your bags ready. So now that you've made sure that you're strong enough to hold on to your dog, you've made an assessment of your dog's triggers, and you've planned for what you're going to do when you encounter such triggers. You have your leash ready, and you have your doggy bags ready. You're ready to go up and walk your dog. Now hold your leash, as I said, with the grip and wrap it at least once around your wrist. And as you're outside, be aware of your surroundings. Do not be on your cell phone. Do not get distracted. Just enjoy the moment. Enjoy your walk with your dog. And be watching for any potential threats or triggers out there that might set your dog off, especially when it's your first couple of walks outside. Be ready to fend off any unleashed dogs. Unfortunately, we'd like to give our dogs more credit than they sometimes might deserve or are ready for, and we think that they're ready to be unleashed. And unfortunately, that causes very friendly dogs to approach aggressive dogs, such as our Angela, and that can cause issues. And both to protect yourself and your dog, it's just best if everybody is leashed, and you make sure that your dog does not approach other dogs, and that other dogs don't approach your dog.
And you should expect evolution to outweigh training almost all the time.
So what does that mean?
So the evolution for the hunt or the chase is going to win in almost all dogs versus training. Just like BG has done a couple of years of agility training and knows quite a few commands, but if you let some furry creature run in front of her, she's going to forget all of her commands and she's going to bolt off.
So she probably would have failed one of those police dog schools.
Possibly, but most dogs would.
Yeah,
and
yeah, for
people
sure.
give them way too much credit for. I mean, they have training, but evolution's going to trump that when it comes down to the moment.
Right. So that being said, always be ready to fend off any unleashed dogs. Also, I mentioned earlier, look out for unsupervised children. Parents sometimes lose track of their kids, and kids usually love puppies, and they of all sizes and all breeds. So they'll come up to them and say hi to them and start touching them. And we're very fortunate that we have dogs that love children and are infinitely patient with them. But you don't know if your dog might be aggressive. So look out for any unsupervised children. But most importantly, have fun. Enjoy the walk with your dog and enjoy being out there in nature with them. I'm sure they're enjoying that time with you as well.
Walking your dog is a great and pleasant experience we're fortunate enough to have during these stressful times. Enjoy it safely, maintaining your social distance. If you like what you heard, don't forget to visit our website, adventureswithbg.com, or look us up on Instagram, adventureswithbg. Stay safe as you wander into the woods.